Today marks 5 years since the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. And we're going to be really clear about what happened on that day, because called to action by President Trump, thousands of his supporters gathered in Washington, D.C. to push his false claims that the 2020 election had been stolen and to demand that then Vice President Mike Pence and lawmakers reject President Biden's legitimate victory. Many people were injured, including more than 170 police officers. And in the days and weeks after the insurrection, five officers who had served at the Capitol that day died. While the millions of dollars in damages to the Capitol have been repaired and many physical injuries have healed, an ongoing battle to preserve what actually happened that day remains. Trump continues to say he rightfully won the 2020 election. He also pardoned nearly all defendants charged in the attack on his first day back in office after winning the election in 2024. And he proceeded to pardon former administration officials and allies allegedly involved in the plot to overturn the 2020 election. Today, a public meeting will be held to rebut claims about what happened 5 years ago. In a letter to colleagues, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries writes in part, it will, quote, expose the election deniers and detail the threats to public safety posed by the hundreds of violent felons. I want to bring in former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who was at the Capitol on January 6th. He's also an advisory board member and spokesman for Home of the Brave, an organization that highlights, in their words, voices of people whose lives have been directly harmed by the Trump administration. Harry's also a dear friend. And Harry, you and I have had this conversation many times over the last 5 years. I'm really thankful that you'll spend part of this morning with us. I wonder if you can reflect 5 years later about how you're feeling on this day.
Hey, Ali, good to be with you. Happy New Year. It's Michael. I got to give Michael Fanone, my friend Michael Fanone, credit for this one, because he says it's a continuation of the fight. Like, you don't pause in the middle of a fight to acknowledge an anniversary of it, because the fight is still ongoing. And as you mentioned in your intro, when you talked about the lies, it's still being fueled. Donald Trump's rhetoric is still being spread. People have always said, hey, let's move on from January 6th. And you know what? I would love nothing more than to do so. Well, two things are wrong with that. Donald Trump keeps bringing it up. Donald Trump is out there talking about how the election was stolen, which led to what happened on January 6, 2021. And also, there's been no accountability for it. So I like this term, history bends towards distortion when accountability is denied.
It does feel, though, like the conversation in Washington, and you and I sat through all of the hearings that the January 6th Select Committee did. I think they so artfully and importantly documented for the full nation to see in video, in depositions and testimony, what exactly happened on this day. And you cannot ensure that something like this doesn't happen again without being clear-eyed about the fact that it happened in the first place. And yet we have seen Republicans, as they've taken back power in the House, in the Senate, and then, of course, in the White House, try to gaslight and erase the reality of what happened. And so what are your concerns around that? I mean, you're doing so much of this work right now to try to just keep history. It is not partisan. It's just physically and literally what happened on January 6th. What are the concerns that you still have around the way that history has distorted this?
I'm glad you said that. History has distorted this, and they are gaslighting us. Listen, I've said this numerous times. We don't need politicians. We don't need pundits and talking heads and news people like yourself, or even me, congressmen and women, to tell us what happened on January 6th. You can literally just press play. Press mute and press play on the television and watch what happened. And you can't tell me that that's the nation that we believe is the best for this country. That we can't not sit there and be honest with ourselves, because it's not misinformation. It's flat out lies. It's flat out gaslighting about what happened. And we can't, if we're not being honest about it, we're doomed to repeat that history. And Donald Trump has even set those plans in motion by pardoning the people responsible for it. And not only just pardoning them, but rewarding them for their behavior.
I think when you talk about accountability, the people who look at January 6th for the day that it was, I do think there's a clamoring for that. And yet you bring up the pardons, both for the people who went and did the insurrection at the Capitol, but then also pardons who tried to take part and plan the statewide efforts to overturn slates of electors that are at the heart of this, procedurally speaking. So what does accountability look like going forward? Because I think in the typical court of justice sense, that has passed.
That's the question that I've struggled with for the last 5 years. You know, initially it was, you know, the House of Representatives brought up articles of impeachment. Great job. Then the Senate failed to convict. So like, well, all right, that institution is not going to bring us accountability. So then we go to the courts. All right, there's been an indictment against Donald Trump in numerous cases. All right, accountability's, it's on the way. It looks like it's headed. All right, Supreme Court step in and say, you know what, official acts, immunity, blah, blah. Jesus Christ. All right. What is it? Now we have an opportunity for the American people to bring accountability towards Donald Trump at the ballot box. And we failed that on November 2024. So it's like, where do we go now? So now it's like, I struggle with the question, what does accountability look like? So now maybe the silver lining is to not let people whitewash about what happened that day, lie about what happened that day. And anybody that supports Donald Trump, frankly, I'm out there, especially if you're running for re-election, you can count on seeing me on your campaign trail endorsing the other guy.
Yeah,
or
because
gal.
you have right. You have taken a more active stance from a campaigning perspective against election deniers. Though I do think we've seen more election deniers now serving in this Congress than even the Congress prior to it. I wonder if hearing Jack Smith's testimony, which was released by the House Judiciary Committee on New Year's Day, we talked yesterday on Morning Joe about how the timing might have been meant to bury it, but at the same time, his words are no less salient. The idea that he's now able to talk about the prosecution that he couldn't bring in a court of law, at least talk about it in the court of public opinion. What did it mean to hear him speak with such clarity about this to you very quickly?
Well, I'm glad that he did it. And you're right. Make no mistake, they released it at that time so it could get buried, so nobody knew what would happen. But I followed the work of Jack Smith. I think he's done great work. But also, let's acknowledge when those cases were dismissed, they were dismissed with prejudice. So maybe there's some accountability at the end of the road. And he's a far sharper legal mind than I am. So maybe there's still accountability in the court of law.
I think grappling with that accountability and grappling with the muddying of history around that day is something that all of us are going to carry, not just on this 5th anniversary, but going forward as well. Former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, I thank you so much for coming on this morning. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Allie.